Oh, this thing's not wanting to work. Oh, there we go. There's no voice this time. I guess I need to adjust the setting.
This hourglass,
There we go.
your life has run its course.
Yeah, we like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the sands of this hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Yes.
Remember that
Yeah, I
stupid
think
soap
that
opera?
still comes on.
It
don't
probably does.
Yeah, I think that still comes on.
Oh, well. Yeah, we got our thingy,
Yeah, our thingy.
and yeah. But you can tell we got the mess cleaned up. There.
Yeah, we got everything cleaned up, Sibs. It didn't take long. I'm surprised it didn't take us long. It took more time to get it down here than it took to go through it and donate stuff. So
Better get myself situated here.
yeah, situated.
All right. There.
Well, Subs.
Yeah, I had to coax my girl into story time tonight because she's feeling a little sicky.
You know what, Subs? It's damp here, and it's raining. Now it just started raining. We have a, storm coming,
Yeah, that tropical storm Nestor, whatever, is
Yeah.
moving through the area.
and it's cold.
Yeah.
So it's cold, and
Cold,
it was
raw
cold
rain.
last night. Yep, it's cold today, and it's damp, and that's not good. It's usually warm during the day, and it gets cold at night.
Mhm.
And so, and I'm going back and forth between the two places, between here and the main house, washing clothes and, doing what I need to do and running back and forth. That's not good, Sibs. But
You know, you're starting to get it.
yep, something's trying to get me, Sibs.
So I'm gonna have to play Dr. RVR.
So, Sibs, today we're going to have some story about from beyond the grave and things that happen, Sibs. Because as we all know, if you do the right thing, Subs, you'll be rewarded for that. But if you don't do the right thing, of course, the person that you do it to and they pass away, they can make your life a misery. Because if they decide that they don't want to move on, they just rather screw with you. That's what they're going to do. So,
My.
but our first story, Sibs, is about Marvin. Okay, Marvin worked at the morgue. And he would come and tell us stories about things that used to happen, because we never went down there. When somebody would pass away, we would, take care of it and everything, and, wash them and put them in a bag and everything on a gurney, and then, they would take them out, take them down to the morgue to wait for, the family or the funeral parlor, and things like that. And things happen down there. So nobody wants to go down there, especially at night. The night shift, we used to hear all kind of crazy stuff that used to go on down there. So Marvin, I guess it was a slow night or whatever, and, because nobody had passed away or anything. So he would come up there where we were, and of course we never asked him anything, but of course the guys did. They would ask him stories, tell him some stories, especially Halloween or Devil's Night. They want to hear all this crazy stuff that goes on down in the morgue. And they were talking about this one that happened about 10, 15 years ago. And it was this man. And he had a dog. And he said it was a nice dog. And, he was always with the man. And the man had a nephew that wasn't the best person in the world. And he didn't like dogs. But the old man had been with that dog. He had that dog since it was a pup, and it was an older dog. So the nephew decided that he couldn't live by himself anymore. Even though he was doing, from what Marvin was saying, he knew the family, that he was doing very well. And the nephew decided, because the old man, he owned property and this and that. And he never had any kids or anything, and his wife had passed away years ago. So it was just him and this dog. So his nephew decided that he ought to make his move, while the old man's still alive. Because if he didn't, you know, it was going to go to the old man's brother, you know, who was better suited to take care of him, because nobody took advantage of the old man. You know, they left him alone, you know, to live his life with his dog. You know, he was happy, so nobody bothered him. It was only this nephew that wanted to get his hands, you know, on the house and the property. And so he decided if he took care of the old man would leave everything to him. That's not what happened, but that's what he thought was going to happen. So he came over and started taking care of the little old man. Okay. Everything was okay at first, but then he started taking over the house. You know, like I said, the dog was old, so the dog would come in. He wasn't an outside dog, he was an inside dog. But the nephew didn't like dogs, so he figured, well, the dog will be okay outside. And you can't do that. I mean, that's just like you're used to being in the house, and all of a sudden somebody wants to push you outside all the time. You know, you're not going to like that. Well, the dog didn't like it either. And so one day in the winter, you know, he decided that he would let the dog out and let the dog stay outside, which he should not have done. So, but he didn't care about the dog. So he had the dog outside and forgot the dog was outside. So the old man was asking, well, where's the dog? Now, we got all this secondhand, because like I said, Marvin knew the family that all this happened to. So I'm telling this from his perspective of what he was, you know, telling us while we were all sitting there. So he said that the old man, you know, asked, well, where's the, you know, I'm trying to think, what was that dog's name, like Brutus or something like that. And he was like, well, I let him outside. He's like, well, did you let him back in? And apparently, he never intended to let that dog back in. And so it was cold out there. When the dog finally did come in, it had caught pneumonia because it was out there for so long. It was wintertime. You know, that dog wasn't used to being outside. And the dog ended up dying. Okay. Like I'll say, I don't remember exactly. I think it was a few weeks later, something like that. You know, the old man took the dog to the hospital, but you know, he was an old dog, and he just couldn't, you know, his immune system wasn't up to par, so he ended up, you know, dying, which devastated the old man, because that was all he had, which was, you know, that's what the nephew intended, you know, but nobody knew it at the time. You know, this all came out. Everybody started figuring out stuff later on. So the old man, you know, was devastated because he needed that dog, you know, because he had a family, but he was used to doing things on his own. I mean, from what Marvin said, he was very nice, you know, but he had his own way of doing things, you know, and him and his dog, you know, went everywhere and did everything. You know, the people in the neighborhood knew him, you know, they saw him all the time. If he had to go to the store, it was okay. He had the dog on a harness, so it was okay to bring the dog, because everybody knew who he was, and everybody knew he was alone except for this dog. So nobody paid that any attention. So anyway, okay, the old man buried the dog on the property, because he owned a lot of property. But he buried him close enough to the house, you know, where he would look and make sure squirrels weren't digging it up, or, you know, putting acorns and stuff like that, you know, pecans, whatever. He had the grave close enough to the house where he could look out on it, you know, make sure it was all right, you know, and when it would rain really bad or snow really bad, he put like a little canopy, you know, over. He really cared, you know, for that dog, and they said the family felt really bad. So they all pitched in, and I forget what you call it, but they put like it was a 4-poster canopy, like, you know, just you know, to put him at ease, you know, to know that, you know, the dog was all right, and he, you know, wasn't going to drown or anything. That was what he thought was going to happen, but, you know, he wasn't thinking straight, you know, because he was grieving the dog. Okay, so the nephew got rid of the dog. Okay, he thought he got rid of the dog. Let's put it that way. So, as time went on, he started bringing up, well, you know, well, what's going to happen if something happens to you? And he was like, well, you know, I already got my will and everything, so, and he named his brother. You know, his brother was already helping take care of him. I mean, the family always helped. You know, they didn't neglect him or anything. But it's just that they let him do whatever made him happy. You know, because that way it was easier for them to intervene. You know, if he was too sick to go anywhere or do anything, they would do it for him. He wasn't neglected at all. You know, they took care of him and everything. But it was just that after the dog died, he just wasn't the same, which that would happen with anybody. You know, you're used to a certain thing, 15, 20 years, which is how long dogs can live. You know, and he had that dog constantly. But after that, he just sort of, started not to take care of himself, and the family noticed that. So even though the nephew was there, other family members started coming over cooking for him, cleaning up for him. And the nephew didn't want him there because he wanted the old man to just depend on him. But it didn't turn out that way. The family figured out what was going on. They're like, no, we need to be going in and out of here just to make sure. So as time went on, the old man, he never recovered from the dog being gone. Okay. So after a while, the nephew started mistreating the old man because he kept wondering, well, do you need me to go to the bank for you? I need some money to go to the store, or he wanted money for his bills, not to take care of the old man's bills because his brother and everybody was doing that. But he wanted money for himself, but he didn't get any because the old man, I guess he started putting two and two together and figured that's why he got rid of the dog. That way he would just be dependent on him. But it was never that way to begin with. I don't know where the nephew got that from. It was never going to be that way. But I guess he didn't think that far ahead because he was greedy. Well, anyway, so Marvin was telling us that, the people in the neighborhood would pitch in, if they didn't see him for a while, they would go over and knock on the door and, visit with him for a little while, make sure everything was okay because they didn't trust the nephew either. So anyway, the old man, he would go out there, and tend to the dog's grave, pull weeds off of it, and stuff like that. He took really good care, of the dog's grave and all. So after a while, after he wouldn't tell the nephew what he wanted to know, he started being mean to the old man, and not letting him have visitors and pulling the cord out the wall. Remember you could do that, Subs? Because he had a landline. He didn't have, any cordless phones or none of that. It was just a regular landline. So he didn't have computers. He didn't have none of that stuff. So he started pulling the phone out of the wall. So the phone would just keep, ringing on the other end. Because he wanted to try to isolate the old man. I guess to punish him because he wouldn't tell him what he wanted to know as far as financially. Because he was going to rob the old man blind. Let's just put it that way. He thought. So the old man got sick one day. So he had to go to the hospital, because he had a bad heart from what Marvin was telling us. He had a bad heart for a while, but the dog's death seemed to have made it even worse. And he had to, go into the hospital for, I think Marvin said for like a month, something like that. And in that time, the nephew was just rummaging through everything. Trying to find out where his bank books were. He never did find it because it wasn't in the house. What a dumbass. Well, anyway, so he decided, that he was going to sit up there and burn the house down. Get the insurance money. But his name wasn't on anything. So how was he going to get the insurance money? Well, I don't think he did it for the insurance. I think he did it to try to get back at the old man. Because once the dog was gone, all he had was that house. And without the house, I guess, I don't want it, so you can't have it either. Even though it wasn't his. So anyway, like I said, the old man, he was still in the hospital and everything. But the nephew was still going over there. Apparently the family didn't know. They thought when the old man went to the hospital that the nephew had went on about his business. That was not the case. Everybody didn't find that out till later. So he decided, I'll just burn the house down because I'm not going to get what I want. I just wasted my time being here with him. or so he thought. Marvin said that to get back at the old man, he was going to dig up the dog. And yeah, he's going to dig that dog up, bring the dog in the house, and set the house on fire. Okay? Now, how is that going to make him give you money? You know, like we were hypothesizing, well, was he going to dig the dog up and hide the dog and not tell the old man where it was until he gave him money? That's what we thought, you know, what he was going to do. But he never got that far. And what he did was he went and dug the dog up and took the dog upstairs and put the dog in a room. Okay, the dog did have a coffin, believe it or not. Yeah, the dog had a coffin. So, and it was, what did he say that dog was? I think it was a shepherd mix. It wasn't a little dog, it was a big dog. And he took the dog, out the coffin and everything, and took him upstairs and put him in the bathtub. Okay? So apparently there was more than one bathtub. Well, the old man couldn't go upstairs anymore. He had to stay downstairs, obviously because of his heart condition. So I guess he figured, well, he'd take him upstairs. He couldn't go up there, so he wouldn't know. You would smell it, so you would know. But the dog had been dead for a while, so, Well, anyway. So dumbass figured, well, I'll hide the dog, and then enable for me to tell him what I did, he'll have to give me money. Yeah, that didn't work out too good.
Wow.
So anyway, he's making all these plans and everything. So he was over there in the house by himself. The old man was still, in the hospital and everything. So Marvin said he's sitting up there and he went and turned the gas on in the stove, but he blew out the fire, the pilot. He blew that out. So he was going to sit up there and wait until the water heater kicked on and blow the house up. Set the house on fire. So the old man wouldn't have nowhere to go. But he did have somewhere to go. But of course, like an idiot, he wasn't thinking that far ahead. So anyway, he said that this fool went and opened up the oven door and was going to blow the pilot light out. And when he got out the oven and turned around, something jumped on him and grabbed a hold of his throat and started growling and carrying on. Now, he went insane after this, so what we're getting is just bits and pieces of what happened, because he went to the nut house after this. And he said that the dog was there, and he was like, you could tell it was a dog at one time, but
Like a zombie?
yeah, it was like a skeletonized, like part skeleton, part dog, but the dog was attacking him because he was trying to burn the house down. And plus he was, he had killed the dog. The dog apparently, even in death, had not forgotten what he did. So he said that whatever it was had him by the throat and had all of his weight on top of him, but he never did blow the pilot out because the dog got to him, whatever it was, got to him before he could do that. So he's trying to fight with this thing, and he hit the dog with something. And he got up and ran, but the dog followed him. So he went outside, and the neighbor said, when a dog is attacking somebody, there's a distinct sound. If the dog growling and the person screaming, that you can tell when somebody's being attacked by a dog. And the neighbors said they came running outside to see what was going on, and they could see him on the ground, and there was like a shadow on him, attacking him. And they said they knew what the shadow was. It looked just like that dog, but they knew the dog had died. And they said they saw him. It was a big black shadow, and it was attacking him, and it had him down on the ground, and it went from his throat to his hand that he was going to turn the gas off with, turn the gas on with. That this, I guess he was right-handed. So, you know, they said they just stood there because they knew the dog was dead. So what was attacking him? And so when they started gathering, you know, and going over to see what was going on, they said the dog turned around and looked at them and then ran back in the house. So when they got to the nephew's face was all chewed up and his right hand was chewed off. And so they called the police and the paramedics and everything. And they said they saw the dog go back up into the house. So they went in, a couple of the guys went in to look for the dog. They didn't hear anything and they didn't see anything. So they started searching around the house. Somebody went around back and was saying that the dog had been dug up. And they were like, well, who would have done such a thing? You know, I mean, people started putting two and two together. So they managed to go upstairs because they knew the old man couldn't go upstairs anymore. The nephew, but they knew about the nephew, so they thought, well, you know, the nephew probably lived upstairs. So they went upstairs and went into the bathroom and found the dead dog. And the dog had his hand still in his mouth. The dead dog. And of course they screaming, you know, and carrying on, and you know, and the police, you know, came in to find out what was going on. And they said the police came up there and, you know, they turned the light on so everybody could see. There was a half skeleton dog with that guy's hand in his mouth. He had chewed it completely off. And there was blood all over his mouth, but it was a skeletonized dog.
And he wasn't moving when they saw him.
No.
Wow.
He was just laying there the way the nephew had put him and just threw him in the tub. Yep. Yep, and they said that he went crazy after that. Mm-hmm. But what they said, that didn't end the story. So the old man came home, and of course, you know, over time he found out what happened, and the neighbors had, you know, put the dog back to rest, you know, back in the yard, and, you know, fixed his little canopy and stuff like that. So, and everybody found out what was going on, you know, and the nephew went crazy, so he was never tried for what he did because he had just gone completely bonkers, you know, after that. And they said that I think it was Kane Hospital that he went to, and Kane used to be for the mentally disturbed, and they treated those people so bad, you know, back in the day. It was a real scandal because I think there was 3 or 4 Kane hospitals, and they were a scandal. So anyway, that's where he ended up. And Marvin said that even the staff was like, they would look in the room and they would see a shadow, like he would be backed into the corner on the floor, you know, talking about get it away from me. And they opened the door one time to see what he was talking about because he was in the room by himself. And they said they could see something, a shadow shaped like a dog snapping at him, trying to bite him. You know, so, and no matter what room they changed him to, it was the same thing. You know, there was that dog. It was either trying to attack him or it was just sitting there staring at him. It never bothered the staff or anything like that. It wasn't there for them. It wanted to torment him, and that's what it was doing.
Is he still alive to this day? Or?
You know, I don't know. You know, because that was a while ago. You know, I don't know what happened to him. But the old man, he was fine. You know, he came home and the family continued, you know, to look after him and everything. And eventually they did, you know, take him to a shelter to get him, you know, a different shelter dog. But they said that even though he did get a shelter dog, he would always hear the dog playing with another dog. And they said they think it was the dog that had passed away came back, would come back to make sure that everything was okay, and was probably, you know, playing with the other dog. Because they said it wasn't a grown dog, but it was like maybe less than a year, you know, but it always felt like it was playing, because you can tell when dogs are playing, because we had two dogs, and you can always tell when they're, because they're crashing into something and they're real clumsy, and he said he would hear it all the time, but he never paid it any mind, because he figured out that his dog was back checking, making sure everything was okay. So the old man was fine. The family found out what was going on. The nephew went nuts. And the last we had heard, he never regained his sanity, ever. He never did. No. Mm-mm. And nobody could explain how he got his hand chewed off and how it ended up up in the bathtub in the dead dog's mouth. Nobody could figure that out.
Freaky.
So, yep.
Mhm.
So just because, something dies, and if you do wrong, that doesn't mean it won't come after you. Because it has abilities now. We don't have abilities, but once you die, you do. And that animal was devoted to that old man. It knew what was going on. And it came back to protect him, and that's exactly what he did. Because if that dog hadn't come back, he'd have blown that house up. He wouldn't have cared, because he wasn't going to get what he wanted. He didn't work for it or anything. And the old man didn't even want him there. He decided, oh, well, if I get rid of the dog, then he'll be dependent on me, and he'll just leave everything to me. That is not how it works. No. Mm-mm. Especially when you're not even wanted. How you gonna force yourself on somebody?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that didn't end up well, did it, Subs?
Oh my.
No, it did not. Yep, the dog came back from the grave and took care of the situation for him while the old man was in the hospital. And I guess he didn't do it in front of the old man because he didn't want him, I guess, to have an even worse heart attack, to see that whatever, his dog attacking that guy in the front yard and chewing him up like he did. Because that probably would stop that old man's heart to see something like that. And to look out the window and see the dog's grave all dug up, that was a terrible thing. But fortunately, he never saw any of that. And as far as what Marvin was telling us, he never really knew the whole story because nobody said anything. The neighbors, nobody said anything about the dog being dug up or nothing. Because they figured that would have been too much for him. So. But who knows? Maybe he does. Maybe he didn't. I mean, who knows? But from what we could tell, the old man is still alive. He just has a new pup. So well, he's probably not a pup now. But he still has the same dog, and they just went on with life. He just wanted to be with his dog and live his life. And here come some greedy varmint trying to take something that didn't belong to him, and the dog was like, no, you're not going to do that. And that dog stopped him. There's no telling what would have happened. I mean, because if there's a gas explosion, you could take out a whole city block with a gas explosion. I mean, you could tell he hadn't thought this up, any further ahead than he hadn't thought about it. He was just worried about that moment. Okay, you're not going to give me what I want, so I'm not going to leave you with anything. You're going to come home to nothing. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. So, kudos to that dog.
Yeah.
Because it saved him. It's probably looking after him to this very day, which is a good thing.
Wow.
But, yep. So that's my tale from Beyond the Grave, Sid.
Oh my.
Yeah, and that came from one of the morgue attendants. Like I said, we weren't there. We didn't see any of this. But this is what, some of the stories that we would tell, each other, and what Marvin was telling us about, something that just happened to happen in his neighborhood a while back. He was telling us. So.
Well, I'll probably end story time for this week to get over your sickness.
Yeah, Sid. I start talking too much, and I'll start coughing and carrying. I have to take some medicine tonight because this weather, it's damp and it's cold.
And I'm starting to sneeze now.
Yeah.
I was sneezing at work, and I will sneeze during your
Yeah,
tail.
it's we have to
So.
get some more medicine in the house.
Yeah.
But yep, Sibs.
Well. So don't torment dogs and try to be greedy.
Yeah, just stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Subs.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's coming down harder now.
Yep. Rain is coming now. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and we'll end today's story tale. So
Yeah.
hope you enjoyed it.
Be
You're
kind
not,
to animals.
yeah. Don't get all spooked out.
Yeah. And leave the old people alone.
Yeah.
Leave anybody alone. If they're not bothering you, go on about your business. Enjoy your life. Leave them alone. You know,
Yeah.
you can enjoy your life without disrupting somebody else's. And look what happened to that dimwit. So, but he deserved it. He deserved worse. But you know, the dog took care of him. So
Wow. All right. Well, till next week.
yeah, next
More.
week's it.
No more scary ventures.
Yeah,
So
scurry.
till then,
Bye, Sid.
adios.
Yeah.
Woo.